Shandong announced open spaces for earthquake shelters, Dezhou square crowded with tents. Another major epidemic approaching? Inner Mongolia reports 3 confirmed plague cases in 1 week. WHO lifts monkeypox emergency health declaration, China experiences sudden surge. Sluggish consumer demand, Beijing plans to relax household registration experts, creating illusions to satisfy hunger. China's local debt reaches 94 trillion yuan, storm strikes Beijing, the ticking time bomb is ready to explode. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Shandong announced open spaces for earthquake shelters, Dezhou square crowded with tents. Following the earthquake in Dezhou, Shandong, on August 6, various unusual phenomena continue to occur in northern China, causing concerns among the public that there might be a major earthquake. Recently, several cities in Shandong announced open spaces for earthquake shelters. Dezhou reported another earthquake on August 12, and on the night of August 11, many tents for staying appeared in the central square, with many families preparing to spend the night there. These scenes were filmed by a local resident who said, "The earthquakes frightened us." Yesterday, the city held an emergency meeting. August 15 is an air raid warning, and they announced 24 emergency evacuation open spaces. It's clearly for earthquake preparedness. The video garnered hundreds of comments. However, no earthquake occurred on the 12th, and the alarm has been lifted. Nonetheless, some individuals in the comments section mentioned that there was indeed a tremor around 11 p.m. that night, even though there were no official earthquake predictions. Some people from Hebei also left comments. At 6:30 p.m. tonight, there was a spectacular sunset at the border between Dezhou City in Shandong and Wuqiao County in Hebei. It was accompanied by a dark cloud. Someone had just live-streamed the scene as they were passing through the plains, where people were sleeping in tents for shelter. Some netizens from Shandong uploaded strange cloud formations in Dezhou and peculiar light clusters in the night sky of Qingdao's Jima, asking if these were normal. As previously reported, following the major flooding in Hebei and the earthquake in Shandong, various strange phenomena have been occurring frequently, including eerie night skies, groundwater spouts, unusual animal migrations, and more. Netizens have been sharing these anomalies online and discussing whether they could be signs of a major earthquake. Many residents of Dezhou mentioned that while they hadn't moved outside to live, they had made preparations and were ready to leave their homes at any time. Because there have been too many signs of earthquakes recently, making it entirely necessary to be prepared in advance. Another major epidemic approaching? Inner Mongolia reports 3 confirmed plague cases in 1 week. As the flood disaster continues and the coronavirus still rages on with increasing reports of infections, on August 12, there have been 3 consecutive confirmed plague cases in Sunit Right Banner, Xilingdal League, Inner Mongolia. This undoubtedly worsens the situation and raises concerns both within and outside of China about the potential plague outbreak under the rule of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, on the mainland. This information has been confirmed by the Health Commission of Sunit Right Banner, Xilingdal League, Inner Mongolia. Specifically, on August 12, 2 confirmed plague cases were reported in Sunit Right Banner. These cases involve a husband and daughter from the same household, who were previously reported as plague cases on August 7. Currently, the patients are receiving treatment at a designated hospital, and close contacts have not shown any abnormal symptoms. The situation is being closely monitored. Plague, also known as the Black Death, is a type of pandemic characterized by rapid onset, short duration, high fatality rate, strong infectivity, and swift transmission. This disease is primarily transmitted through rodents. Although cases of bubonic plague have become increasingly rare, they are not uncommon in China. The incubation period for plague is relatively short, generally ranging from 1 to 6 days, although in rare cases, it can extend to 8 or 9 days. Xinhua reported in July 2022 that there were 11 confirmed cases of plague in Inner Mongolia and Ningxia, China, from 2019 to 2022. Specifically, there were 5 cases of plague in 2019, with 1 death, 4 cases in 2020, resulting in 3 deaths, 1 case in 2021, and 1 case in 2022. However, according to reports from mainland media such as the paper, China News in September 2022, after the resurgence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2-month lockdown in Shanghai, there was an increase in rat density around September of the same year. However, official media did not provide further follow-up reports, making it difficult for the public to understand the actual situation at that time. According to statistics from the World Health Organization, around 1,000 to 2,000 people are infected with plague each year. However, due to the large number of unreported cases, this data is not considered to accurately reflect the reality. Additionally, considering the opacity of data during the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in mainland China in recent years, the resurgence of plague in Inner Mongolia raises concerns about whether authorities might be concealing information from the public. According to historical records, during the late Qing dynasty, the final imperial dynasty in China, a succession of disasters including plagues, locusts, droughts, floods, and severe cold led to the downfall of the dynasty, culminating with a final plague that sealed its fate. From 2020 until now, mainland China under the rule of the CCP has experienced a series of unprecedented disasters, including the COVID-19 pandemic, African swine fever, monkeypox, locusts, droughts, floods, and earthquakes. This has led to the number of deaths remaining a secret under the regime. These consecutive catastrophes have caused deep concern. Who lifts monkeypox emergency health declaration? China experiences sudden surge. Here's a continued update on monkeypox, which is silently spreading among the male population engaging in same-sex activities, with 80% of cases being isolated incidents. From January 2022 to April 2023, more than 87,000 confirmed cases of monkeypox were reported in 111 countries or regions worldwide, with 140 deaths, leading the WHO to declare on July 23 last year that the monkeypox situation constituted an international public health emergency. Later, with a decline in the global monkeypox case count and stabilization, WHO Director General Tedros announced on May 11 that monkeypox no longer constituted a public health emergency of international concern. However, in China, the monkeypox situation seems to be expanding. According to data from the China Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, there were 106 newly confirmed cases of monkeypox across China in June, followed by an additional 491 cases in July. After enduring the COVID-19 pandemic for 3 years and finally lifting lockdowns, there is now a new outbreak of monkeypox in China. Chinese netizens are questioning why there was such a significant increase in confirmed monkeypox cases in July compared to June. Qin Peng, a commentator on current affairs based in the US, remarked, "I think the concerns of netizens are reasonable because, for one, the CCP has a habitual tendency to conceal infectious diseases. If there are too many infectious diseases, they might feel somewhat embarrassed, especially when monkeypox is relatively controlled worldwide. A widespread outbreak in China at this time could have a substantial impact." Professor Liu from the Canadian College of Traditional Chinese Medicine stated, "In specific groups, individuals might have dual infections. For instance, if someone had previously been infected with COVID-19 and continues engaging in risky same-sex activities, their infection rate might increase." He added, "In Chinese society, many people don't have the kind of religious restrictions towards homosexuality that you might find in the West. Many people live in households where they might find it difficult to maintain a good image or face societal pressures. So, in reality, the prevalence of this behavior might actually be higher than in the West, but it's more hidden or occurs secretly. The Communist Party's ideology can control people's thoughts, but it's not overly invested in curbing risky behaviors. In many cases, there's a certain level of tolerance, which I believe contributes to the spread." 3 years ago, before the outbreak of the COVID-19 epidemic, Wuhan, the epicenter of the pandemic, saw around 5 million people leave before the city was locked down. Their international travel trajectories covered nearly the entire globe. Now, as China approved outbound group tours for 78 countries on August 10, the world is concerned whether the monkeypox virus will become the second virus, after COVID-19, to trigger a major global outbreak. Sluggish consumer demand. Beijing plans to relax household registration, experts, creating illusions to satisfy hunger. Since the second quarter of this year, China's economy has been continuously declining, with weak consumer demand. Beijing authorities plan to relax the household registration system to attract rural populations to urban areas in order to stimulate consumption. Experts point out that relying on rural populations moving to cities to boost consumption is merely a pie-in-the-sky solution. The Chinese Ministry of Public Security announced plans to implement household registration reforms this month, aiming to ease residency requirements and facilitate urban residency. These changes aim to encourage skilled rural individuals to settle in cities, along with addressing urban laborers' residency issues. Subsequently, former deputy director of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, CAS, Kai Fang, took the opportunity during a recent forum to endorse the background authorities' so-called household registration reform. He claimed that this reform could release the consumption desires of the already urbanized 180 million migrant workers without needing to increase their incomes. Chinese National Bureau of Statistics data shows an urban permanent population of around 920 million by 2022's end, with rural permanent population at 491 million, yielding a 65% urbanization rate. Some scholars compare this to developed nations like the US, UK, Japan, Canada, and Australia with urbanization rates surpassing 80%, notably 92% in Japan. However, some economists also point out that the key issue lies not in household registration but in confidence. The Beijing authorities' attempt to solve the problem of sluggish consumption through population urbanization is merely a form of creating illusions to satisfy hunger. Chinese economist Gong Xingli recently told Voice of America that he doubts the effectiveness of the mentioned reforms. He questioned how rural individuals moving to cities could succeed beyond finding jobs, given challenges like housing and livelihoods. He highlighted the contrast between lofty ideas and harsh reality. Gong also noted that rural residents in China earn less than 3,000 Chinese yuan per month, making city living challenging. Wealthier individuals would likely consider immigrating abroad. He further analyzed that due to numerous business closures, major cities are grappling with surging unemployment. This situation, coupled with urban workers' job losses, makes it difficult for cities to absorb more rural labor. A survey by Beijing's Caixin magazine's Industry Research Center found that in 2022, over 1.94 million businesses shut down across China's wealthiest cities. Former deputy director of the Pangol Institution, Jian Hao, mentioned in a Voice of America interview that China's current economic problems have shaken confidence among domestic and foreign investors. Thus, the household registration reforms seem like a symbolic gesture, tackling less impactful issues. Jian emphasized that China struggles to instill investor confidence due to uncertainties, making capitalists reluctant to stay. Gong Xingli directly stated that China's unique household registration system should have been abolished long ago due to its abnormal nature. He said, "The household registration system is a peculiar phenomenon unique to China and not found anywhere else in the world. The fundamental principle in other countries is the freedom of people's movement, but in China, the household registration system reform has never been fully implemented, and it's still unclear why they persist with it." He stated that the lack of complete freedom of movement for the people not only increases the operating costs for businesses but also hinders alignment with the international community. China's local debt reaches 94 trillion yuan, storm strikes Beijing, the ticking time bomb is ready to explode. Since entering August, floods have ravaged more than half of China. Evergrande defaulted, China Zhongji Group, a leading Chinese asset management corporation, defaulted, China Rongxin Trust, a Chinese financial institution that specializes in providing trust and wealth management services, defaulted. The U.S. prohibited high-tech investments, imports and exports plummeted by 13.6% in July. Corruption in the medical system is escalating. July's Consumer Price Index, CPI, was minus 0.3%, the number of inbound tourists for domestic travel in the first quarter of 2023 plummeted by 98.6% compared to 2019, and so on and so forth. It can be said that the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is sitting on a volcano. Especially concerning local debt, according to estimates by Goldman Sachs, the cumulative debt of Chinese local governments has reached a staggering 94 trillion Chinese yuan, nearly $13 trillion US dollars, including debts not accounted for on the balance sheet. On August 11, the Financial Times reported that a working group, composed of the central bank, the CCP's Ministry of Finance, and securities regulatory authorities, dispatched by the State Council, has been sent to over 10 financially challenged provinces to conduct audits, seeking methods to reduce debt, and reporting directly to Premier Li Qiang of the CCP's State Council. This represents the largest top-down approach that the CCP has adopted over the years to address the issue of local government debt, highlighting the regime's growing concern about financial risks. The report cites sources indicating that one of the most crucial tasks of the working group currently is to scrutinize and categorize the hidden debts of local government financing platforms. These hidden debts are not included on the balance sheets of local governments but are funds raised through off-market or other non-public channels. Data released by researchers at J.P. Morgan Chase in June shows that China's overall debt has reached 282% of its GDP. However, the troubles are far from over. Just as one crisis subsides, another emerges. There are alarming reports that China's state-owned enterprise, China Zhongrong International Trust, is facing a default crisis. According to a report by Phoenix News, China Zhongrong International Trust has currently suspended redemption for at least 350 billion renminbi, approximately 48.6 billion US dollars, worth of trust products. In recent years, China Zhongrong Trust's real estate business has been steadily growing. From 2017 to 2020, the proportion of trust assets invested in real estate was 6.61%, 10.99%, 17.65%, and 18%, respectively. In 2021, China Zhongrong Trust reduced the proportion of real estate business to 14.02%, with a scale of 89.555 billion renminbi, approximately 12.4 billion US dollars. The current state of China's real estate market can be accurately described as dire. As previously reported, on the 10th, during a private fundraising event, U.S. President Biden remarked that China's escalating economic issues have turned the CCP into a ticking time bomb, and he noted that the rising unemployment rate and aging workforce have caused significant trouble for the CCP. He mentioned, "This isn't good because when bad guys get into trouble, they tend to do bad things." Wang Huntao, the chairman of the China Democracy Party and a PhD in political science from Columbia University, shared with Sound of Hope that the root cause of China's economic deterioration lies in the expansion of CCP's authoritarian rule. He stated, "The Chinese economy, like many authoritarian governments of the 20th century, started with freedom, market liberalization, and economic freedom, which led to economic development. Then they began expanding their power, resulting in an economic decline. After the economy declines, they won't correct their mistakes, instead, they might engage in wrongdoing to cover up their errors." In the past, during the Great Famine caused by Mao Zedong, he initially blamed it on natural disasters. Then he said it was the Soviet Union suppressing us and forcing us to repay debts, or the United States imposing sanctions on us. In reality, he led us through those difficult times, which he propagandized. The CCP took the wrong path or could relive Japan's lost decade. An article in the Wall Street Journal warned at the end of July that China might be heading towards a lost decade similar to Japan's. Japan had chosen to distribute the pain caused by the real estate bubble over decades of sluggish growth rather than enduring short-term, severe shocks. This was due to concerns that such immediate shocks could lead to unforeseen creative destruction. The article suggests that if the Chinese authorities continue to provide loans to troubled developers like China Evergrande and weaken risks, these real estate enterprises could turn into zombie companies, wasting economic resources. If these companies are forced to restructure and shut down, they could default on loans, causing short-term losses for lending institutions and temporarily restraining economic growth. The article mentions that although CCP-controlled media like the People's Daily published anonymous commentaries warning of economic risks in 2016, and Chinese economists extensively studied Japan, the authorities did not take action but chose a more erroneous path. This is because it's politically difficult for the CCP to tell the Chinese people that the homes they purchased during the bubble period might never be completed, and it's also challenging to allow well-connected developers to fail or withdraw support for sales. Such actions could lead to economic upheaval, and the CCP is concerned about the political risks that could come from it. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.